Konnichiwa, Mugen Gumi e yokoso. Howdy, welcome to Mugen Gumi. In this session, we're going to wrap up with the introduction of the pieces and move on. We'll start with a brief review, introduce the minor pieces, and introduce you to the concept of using captured pieces in the game. And we'll wrap up with a demonstration of this unusual capability, at least from the perspective of chess. So let's start with a brief review. In the last session, we introduced Hisha, the equivalent to the Rook. Hisha, or flying chariot, literally, moves exactly the same as the Rook. Unlimited direction, but does have to stop if he encounters a friendly piece, or is compelled to stop short or take an enemy piece. Once Hisha crosses the promotion line, he may promote, and should, and becomes Ryu, or the dragon. At that point, he also gets one diagonal following promotion. Kaku is like the bishop, moves on the diagonal, and since you only get one, and since he sets up here, it's always these diagonals. So he's never on these until such time that he promotes. Always on these diagonals. Again, just like the bishop, if he encounters a friendly piece, he has to stop short. If he encounters an enemy piece, he can either stop short or take. If he crosses promotion, he becomes Uma, or horse, and gains the ability to go one square in each cardinal direction. These two pieces are your primary offensive capability in the game. But don't underestimate the power of moving a silver forward supported by or supporting either of these pieces, and possibly a knight as well, and the pawns. Okay. By the way, you do see I have the board set up, and that is for later. Okay, to introduce the first of the new pieces, this is the knight, or Keima. Sets up here, moves exactly as a chess knight, except only in the forward sense. So the only available move is chew forward and hook either left or right. That's it. He does not have the lateral, and he does not have the ability to withdraw. And that's an important consideration when using this piece. He cannot retreat. So if he cannot retreat, you don't want to expose him too early, or you will risk losing him too early in the game. And these in the hands of your opponent can be very devastating. You just have to wait for you just have to bide your time. That's one of those things where you bide your time. So that lack of ability to withdraw that is in the chess game for the knight is not at all present in shogi. Now, the other interesting piece, I mentioned it in the first session, is that due to that movement limitation, then if you always cut right from this position, you'll get there, and that's as far as you can go, which is, by the way, where these two dots line up. That's as far to the right as he goes using his own move. Now, what could probably have happened is he could have promoted here, and then that would have changed everything from then on. Alternatively, if he goes here, then he absolutely must promote, because he has no valid move beyond this point. And that's one of those cases in this game where you're compelled to promote a piece. Okay, so once Keima does promote, he becomes Nari-kei and has exactly the same move as gold. So all three in front, both lateral, and directly to the rear. And that's an amazing amount of capability to have beyond this line. Fair amount of offensive punch once he gets there. And the same holds true on this side. This would have started here, moved here, 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 and here. And you see these two dots. And that's as far to the left as he can possibly get. And of course, would have been compelled to promote if going to that extent. Okay. The ability of the knight, the truly special ability of the knight, is to put your opponent in really tough places like this one. Something like this can happen to you. And then when faced with this, if you have nothing with which to take him, he's just gotten a really good exchange. You know, it just at this point becomes a question of which piece you value more. You know, there's not much. You know, you can't interpose a piece in between because of the knight's ability to jump pieces. So that doesn't do anything. Your only ability is to position a piece so that at least you can get him out of the game. Okay. Amazing capability on that piece. And then finally is the Lancer. Sets up here, also known asきょうしゃ. And so this is another very interesting piece, very similar to the Rook in one respect only, and that is it can advance an unlimited number of squares in this direction. But just like the Rook, if he encounters a friendly piece, he has to stop short, cannot jump. If he encounters an enemy piece, he may stop short, or he may take it. He may not withdraw either. So this is another piece that you want to reserve to at least towards the middle of the game to start releasing, because once out here, there's no going back. Not short of being captured or going forward and promoting. All right. So onceきょうしゃcrosses the promotion line, then he may promote and becomesなりきょうand has exactly the same moveset as gold. And again, he's not referred to as gold. He's referred to asなりきょう. It's important to remember from whence he came, what he was. So, and just from a notation perspective, it'd be absolutely chaotic if you started recording every piece that became gold as gold, because then you'd never figure out which piece we were referring to. I mean, you could back into it from what square into which they moved, possibly, but at some stage in the game, everybody's close enough together where that may be hard to pick apart. So again, referring to it as nari kyo rather than kin is the way to go. All right. And then finally, the humble pawn. Hu. Or the infantry. So the pawn moves straight forward, and the pawn takes straight forward, unlike chess. So building something like a Sicilian defense, which is used in chess, doesn't work. In chess, these pawns would cover this pawn, or these pawns would cover all these. Not so in shogi. In shogi, pawns strictly move straight forward. Move and take straight forward. There's no taking this way. There's no en passant maneuver. There's just none of that. The pawn simply goes straight across. If he makes it to promotion, turns over, becomes narifu, or to, becomes to, and at this point has exactly the same moveset as gold. So that's a tremendous incentive to promoting these. And usually what happens in a game is they're promoted, they become to, and they threaten something, and they almost immediately get taken. But sometimes they survive that. So it is very different from chess. Okay. So that's the pieces. All right. So now the subject of using captured pieces. Okay. This comes as a great shock to chess players because a piece once captured in chess is out of the game for good. Pieces do come back once pawns promote, and usually what happens is somebody gets their queen back that way, possibly gets the second queen, usually signified by turning a rook upside down. And I mean, it's theoretically possible to have 4 queens on one side. I've seen that once, and it was just plain gratuitous. He should have actually played to put the guy out of his misery, rather than promote enough pawns to accumulate 4 queens. And obviously, with that much power on one side, and obviously the other side's doing that badly to allow that to happen in the first place, it's just gratuitous and gross, in my opinion. So, placing a captured piece on the board. It's as simple as this is going to be. This is going to be your move, and so how you do that. You just place it where you intend to place it, and that's your move, and it goes there. What's possible? If you had a covering piece, you could do this and put the king directly into check. Now you cannot promote there. You would have to make one full move and then promote from this position. No piece when dropped onto the board will promote at that time. That would have to be the move after. But it is possible to place a piece and put the king directly in check. One exception is the pawn. Again, assuming a covering piece, you cannot do that with a pawn. Every other piece you can, but the pawn you may not. One other thing that you cannot do with a pawn is place a pawn into any file already occupied by a pawn of your own. So, absent this, well, that one's absent on that side too. So, absent that one, if you so desired, you could place a pawn there. Okay. All right. And that pretty much covers the subject. Now, to show you the devastating impact that dropping in pieces can have on a game. You might not be able to see it, but it is mate in about 2 moves right now. Okay. Yes, black has a slight material advantage, 11 pieces versus 9. Black still has a bishop. That's a significant amount of power, and black has both golds and a silver. White only has a gold, a a knight and a lance as back rank pieces. So yes, this is already skewed in one direction. But if you study it, you see that both pawn lines are remarkably intact on this side. Clearly, both sides chose to castle to this side, given by the presence of Olsama in the last two files anyway, on both sides. Black has a very strong defensive position. The only possible weakness would be up in this corner right here. But it's not as if white is showing any signs of being able to muster any force in this area. These two pieces are mutually supporting back here. Silver is supporting both of these. All three of these pawns are supported, and then beyond the pawn there's a little support, so that if white were to choose to drop a piece here, which clearly he'd have to have something in his captured pile. If white had chooses to drop something there, it's possible that could be counteracted. On the other side of the board, you see a lack of development here. These two pieces are still in their original positions. We did manage to get Osama to about the corner. And the pawn line's quite intact, possibly through drop replacements, and then the presence of only one keen. The preceding move, if I had to guess, would have been moving keen from here and the bishop from somewhere around here. Well, that would have happened first, and then keen, faced with being threatened, if he didn't move, then he'd be taken, and there'd be nothing that could be done, and undoubtedly at that point Kaku would be able to become Uma at that point as well. For whatever reason, white chose to move here, possibly to threaten Kaku. The reality is that's a very bad move. The best move would have actually been to close with Olsama. But be that as it may, this is what happened. Okay, so it's black's turn again. Again, mate in two moves. Do you see it? So the move, so what you see in black's hand, that's what it's called, is a hand, the collection of captured pieces. Black's hand includes Keima, or the knight, and Gin, or silver. Okay. And so the first move, or the next move, would be to drop Keima here. Check. He's uncovered, but there's a reason. There's a reason to do this, and this is also a component of shogi that is less common in chess. Not unknown, but less common in chess, the concept of a sacrifice. The only issue with the sacrifice is that from that point forward, it's in your best interest, because since you've sacrificed, you've provided a piece to the enemy, right? So it is in your interest to continue to push and push and push, which means consecutive checks, if at all possible, to keep and seize the initiative and keep rocking your opponent back on his heels. So we place Keima here. What can he do about it? One option is to move the king, and that's basically it. The other option is to take, and that's what white does. Okay, so Has black lost Keima or the knight to no purpose? Not at all. Because the next move's a drop as well. Silver. That's game. Silver is covered by Kaku. Oh, and that was the other piece. Let's back up. So, in check, so he can't take Kaku as he might have planned, and so that had to resolve one way or the other, and it resolved this way. Now, and it's made. Kaku continues to provide cover. There's no way to interpose at this range, and there's no way to move out of it. Game over. One thing that I did not mention is that the pawn never advances 2, as is the case in chess, on the first move. In shogi, the pawn always moves forward one by one by one by one by one. So, in addition to not attacking on the diagonal or being able to cover another piece on a diagonal, in shogi, the pawn, or hu, only advances forward and only takes forward one step at a time. And then has the option to promote, well, actually, correction. Must promote once crossing the 7th rank from your own side. So that's another difference. Is that's one of the pieces that absolutely must promote at the opportunity. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you like what I'm trying to do here, please hit the like button. And if this topic does continue to interest you, please by all means subscribe. One question that I do have for you is that up to now I've been targeting about a 15-minute duration. I've clearly busted that this time, and I'd like a sense from you as to what the right size is for these things. I thought 15 would be about ideal. It is a bit short to cover everything that needs to be covered, and so a little user input, a little input on your part would be very welcome. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. Stay safe. Mata jikai.